In our Washington studio, we're joined now by Harlan Ullman. He's the chairman of the Killowen Group and senior advisor of the Atlantic Council here in Washington. Harlan, welcome to our program.
Good to be with you.
President Trump's speech, the tone and energy, what did you make of it? And let me tell you what one person there tweeted. She said, the big Trump speech oddly lackluster as if he were on tranquilizers. Core message, total defiance of globalization and the UN, silence in the room, no applause, no reaction.
I think that was a very accurate assessment. What's interesting is to contrast what Donald Trump said, which was really for the domestic audience. He was playing to his base. Tough on China, tough on Iran. He spent 15 minutes yesterday at the global warming conference in which he said, I'm for clean air and I'm for clean water. But he begged the issues. This was domestically oriented. And compare and contrast his presentation to the interview you did with Foreign Minister Zarif of Iran, who was measured. You may not agree with him, but he was somebody who was far more rational laying out his case. And so I don't think Donald Trump scored any points with the international audiences, but certainly this was domestically oriented.
Let me tell you what he said about China. He said, hopefully we can reach an agreement that will be beneficial for both countries, but as I have made very clear, I will not accept a bad deal for the American people. So what do you make of what he had to say? Yes, tough rhetoric, but he also leaves the door open to negotiations, which high-level negotiations begin between the two sides in October. Do you foresee any kind of concrete progress and breakthrough before next year's election?
No, in a word. But what could change that dramatically is the economy. Corporations in America now, I think, are cutting back on employment because they see a dark patch ahead. There has been difficulties in the money markets, even though that interest rates have been reduced. The deficit is certainly growing, and the Dow Jones is fluctuating. So I think that a slowdown in the American economy, which is expected and anticipated, may cause Donald Trump to change his mind. After all, as Bill Clinton famously said, it's the economy stupid. And if the economy heads south, so do Donald Trump's chances for re-election.
He also took shots at Venezuela and Iran, Harlan. He said he called Iran's government a repressive regime, one of the greatest security threats facing peace-loving nations today. But he did say he does not want a war. Certainly a change in tune, perhaps?
Not really. I think when the Iranians shot down an American drone this summer and Trump was prepared to launch a retaliatory strike, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joe Dunford, laid out what Iran was capable of doing in a military sense. We saw the raid against the Saudi oil facilities, which may have come from Iran. Iran has a very powerful military capacity, and the damage that they could do in retaliation could far exceed what we could do with simple strikes. So I think there's resistance there and reluctance on the part of the president, and he's right. The last thing the world needs, that America needs, is another war in the Gulf that everybody would lose.
What do you make of, do you think there's any chance of some kind of encounter between the Iranian delegations and the Americans? If you talk to the Iranians, including the foreign minister, he says completely out of the question as long as sanctions remain in place.
There could be an unofficial meeting, not necessarily with Trump, but with some intermediaries. I think the president would be wise if he tried to do that. It's in nobody's interest for the situation in the Gulf to remain tense. There could be other attacks against Saudi oil facilities. There could be escalation. That would be very unfortunate because the tensions are running so high. Remember 1914 and the start of World War I?
I don't remember that, Harlan.
You read your history, Asieh, when a single bullet or two bullets started World War I. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen now, but tensions are running high. There's an awful lot of military force in the Gulf. Oil, those are explosive ingredients, and nobody wants to ignite a world war.
You're absolutely right. The stakes are certainly high. Harlan Ullman, thank you so much.